Hello, you're listening to Don't Listen to This podcast, all about the 1,001 albums to listen to before you die, or allegedly should. It's been a bit of time since I recorded one of these, but yeah, back in action, essentially talking about all things music and all things that allegedly should be listened to. I'm your host, Ewan Gleadow, as ever, here and present, sponsored by Maggi this week. We're not, but I am having one because it is a Tuesday night. No, it's Monday, isn't it? Monday night. Anyway, I am joined this week by Ellie Marsh of. Am I right in thinking you work at BBC? I should have asked that before.
I do. I work for the BBC Scotland as a researcher, which is lots of fun.
Fantastic. Well, how have you been? What have you been listening to recently? What have you had on?
Lots of stuff. I mean, I feel like there's loads of new music out at the minute. I'm not sure if it's like because of COVID, people have been sort of not been able to or not wanted to sort of release as much stuff over the past few years. So it seems like since like the beginning of the year, there's just been loads of new bands. Like I'm quite into Dead Letter at the minute. I saw their BBC introducing from Leeds and Reading, and it just looked mad. So I gave them a listen, and they are class. I definitely recommend them.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else. Wonder Horse, they've just released their first album, which is also class. Give that a listen. And then lots of girlies from Glasgow, like Brooke Combe and Izzy Reed. Just nice, easy listening, but like really young and really, really class.
Oh, it's quality. I agree with what you said there. It does feel like sort of because of COVID, everything was like, all right, let's pump the brakes on for a minute, and then all of a sudden you've got this big surge of loads of new music, and it's brilliant. It's like
It's
the obvious ones are like Self Esteem and Wet Leg and stuff, but it's the further down you go, the better it gets. And I suppose we're going a bit further down into the 70s today because we're going to talk about Rumours by Fleetwood Mac, which I didn't realise was their 10th album. That's a long
crazy
time to wait for what is essentially their biggest release. But Fleetwood Mac, Rumours came out in 1977. Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks, Christine McVie, John McVie, and Mick Fleetwood. I've definitely pronounced their surnames wrong. But at this stage in the podcast, there's not enough people listening for me to care. And then, genre-wise, you've got pop rock and soft rock, which sounds about right for Fleetwood Mac. And I'm sure we'll get onto that because it's one of the big things I don't get about Rumours. But I'm going to do the lovely insert, which is from, I forgot to mention, what's his name? The 1,001 Albums book. I think like Robert Dimery, I think his name is. It's been that long since I've done it, and I've not checked, and I've hidden the book from myself and cleaned my room up, and I don't know where I've put it. But one of the journalists in that book wrote this intro to Fleetwood Mac's Rumours, and a lot of talking points as ever. Well, not as many as we usually have, because this doesn't really have much info in it, but I'll read it out anyways, because it feels like it's mandatory at this point when you're 10 episodes in. The Lazarus-like renaissance and transformation of a London-based blues band into the cutting-edge Los Angeles-based world champions of adult-oriented rock is one of the greatest stories of rock's rich history. Drummer Mick Fleetwood and bass player John McVie had been there since the start in 1967, and with McVie's wife Christine on keyboard since 1970, had weathered major personnel changes. In 1974, they met singer-songwriter-guitarist Lindsey Buckingham and his girlfriend vocalist-songwriter Stevie Nicks. This infusion of new blood resulted in an eponymous 1975 album that briefly topped the US chart and included 3 US top 20 singles. Its successor, Rumours, almost immediately topped the US album chart, where it reigned supreme for 31 weeks, was certified 13 times platinum, and won the 1977 Grammy Award for Album of the Year. I'd just like to take a break. We're halfway through this. I feel like I'm reading out a fucking advertisement for it. But the breezy West Coast harmonies, tighter than tight musicianship, and hook-laden AOR made for a great combination. The 4 tracks highlighted right were US top 10 singles, while Dreams was a million-selling US number 1. For years, the chain introduced the BBC's Grand Prix coverage. I didn't even know the BBC did the Grand Prix at any point, but I suppose so.
That's a proper uncle fact. My uncle told me that before.
Yeah, you know what? I've got one more paragraph to read, but just to go off on a tangent about the writing in this book, it does feel like a collection of uncles have been sat around a table. It's like, all right,
in the pub having a pint.
Yeah. Do you remember Close to the Edge by? Yes. Oh, I do, John. I do. Do you want to pop it in the book? Go on then. It does read like that, and so far I've not really heard anything about the quality of the album in this insert, but there's one paragraph left I'm sure we'll manage. Scratch the surface of these smoothly produced gems, however, and there is a darker subtext. Recording took place while the McVies and Fleetwood were in the throes of divorce. Buckingham and Nicks were also splitting up. Her cold-eyed gold dust woman was later covered by Hole. A blizzard of cocaine further racked up the tension, and all this collective trauma provided the album's title. John McVie once observed that the songs sounded like gossip or rumours. A lot of information there. Not much of it relevant to what we're going to talk about because it's just Billboard information that we could have read on. What's the top 40 called? Is it just top 40?
It's just top 40. I think the
Just
official
top
chart.
40.
Yeah.
Official chart. We could have got that info from official chart, but I think it's early doors for this podcast. But that might be the worst insert I've had so far. That's been the
not a good
lowest
start.
one.
Oh dear.
Not a good one. I think a lot of the issues just come from the fact that it's like, oh yeah, and then this is what Fleetwood Mac were, and then this is what they did with Rumours. I get set the scene, but a lot of that information we can kind of just cast aside. I'm sure we'll touch upon the sort of background of Fleetwood Mac, but before we do that, I remember when I ask everybody that if they want to pop on the podcast, and I just don't mention any albums, but you picked Rumours, and I was wondering, what memories have you got with this? Why did you pick Rumours?
So it's not like some of the other ones from the list were like proper childhood, like singing in the car ones. This one's not so much. Like, didn't grow up listening to Fleetwood Mac at all. I didn't probably start listening to them until I was probably at uni and sort of started finding out more about different kinds of music, going a bit further back in time and stuff. And it's just a bit of a tricky time, going through a pretty tricky time during uni. And it was just a bit like a comfort blanket, which sounds ridiculous because the context of the album, like we've just heard, is horrible and breakups and trauma
Yeah.
and drugs. But I think it is about those topics, but it sounds really happy in a way. Like,
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure if it's just the jingly melodies or whatever it is, but it was just like a comfort blanket. Whenever I wanted to feel a little bit better, and it makes me feel happy. So yeah, that's. And then when I bought my first record player after I left uni, when I had some money, I was like, right, I'm going to buy one. And that was the first one that I bought. So I was like, I want to buy a proper classic, but like one that I'm proper up for. So Rumours was the first LP I bought, which I'm quite proud of.
I feel like it's Rumours, Abbey Road, and that David Bowie compilation that came out when he died are like the mandatory 3 that you get for Christmas.
The 3 you can choose from. They have to be the best.
When your parents find out you start collecting vinyls, they're like, which one do you want for Christmas, son? Yeah. And it's one of those 3. I ended up with the Bowie one, the Bowie collection.
Nice.
Which is not as good as it sounds because it's got Dancing in the Streets on it. I don't know why.
Oh, random.
It's a strange mix. But yeah, as far as Fleetwood Mac goes, it's kind of the same story here where I'd not listened to it until lockdown. Like, I'd had it on vinyl. I got it for Christmas because Tesco used to sell them for like £20 each, which was a really strange time for Tesco. But they used to sell them, and I remember getting Fleetwood Mac's Rumours, and I thought, oh, that's an okay album, because I was, naive at the time and didn't really know much about music. But obviously I've gone back to it, and it's not a big part of my life now, but the memories I've got associated with it are awful. Horrible. It's a brilliant album, but I could probably never listen to that again. I'd be quite comfortable just never hearing Secondhand News again. The intro to that. It's like, I don't know what instrument it is because I'm not that good at music journalism, but whatever they're doing with that bit in the intro, like, it really does just tear through me. Like, it's just awful.
Do you have flashbacks?
Brilliant. I do, yeah, and it's like just like recent flashbacks to like earlier this year. It's like, no, I'm not listening to that anymore. Reminds me of my graduation and all that spillover.
Nice.
Nah, it's an horrible track, but it's brilliant as well. But I think that's the best part about Fleetwood Mac, just to flip it over to the positive side of having it associated with such memories, is that music does have its nice place between, reminding you of something and having that unique quality where it's, Fleetwood Mac have made an absolutely incredible album here, and it's one that I could happily just fling out my window. And I suppose it's that overall quality. I mean, where to begin? There's a lot on this.
There is a lot on it, and it feels like every track is completely different.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Like, I think there's only, I can't remember which track it is off the top of my head, but there's only one track that has all 5 members credited on.
Yeah.
I think it might be The Chain. I think it is The Chain.
It is, yeah. It's The Chain, yeah. Thanks, Wikipedia.
Cheers for that.
Oh, nice job.
But sort of listening to the different combinations of people that have worked together on it is quite, I think it kind of keeps it exciting. The more times you listen to it, you sort of pick out different things from different tracks. I just think they're all completely different, but it sort of fits weirdly.
Oh yeah, it's going from Secondhand News, which is like, quite an upbeat track, and so is Dreams, but for different reasons. I think a lot of it comes down to the instrumentals, where it's kind of, I don't know how to explain it, because obviously they're very vastly different instrumentally, but the mood that they set, they shouldn't work back to back.
Mm-hmm.
Secondhand News going into Dreams shouldn't work. and then to have Never Going Back Again as an update to that, it's like it didn't make sense that cohesion should work because it's like you said, so very different across the board. But I mean, it's a credit to stuff like Stevie Nicks, for instance, that works. I suppose as well with a lot of Fleetwood Mac, you kind of got to take into account the sort of pop culture remit now of how explosive they've been. I think the first time I ever heard The Chain was on Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which is just an embarrassing way to introduce yourself to Fleetwood Mac. But I remember, I don't have TikTok, but I did for a brief period. I downloaded the TikTok thing, and Dreams was like the big track. Everybody was playing. I sound like I'm 47, but when
I downloaded
people,
TikTok back in the day.
I got it on the iPhone thing. To be fair, I did get a new phone, and I've had it. Well, I say new. I got it last year, and I still don't really know how it works. But I did figure out how to get my own phone number, and then I downloaded an app. But when I downloaded TikTok, it was the guy on the skateboard listening to Dreams. I think that was the big thing.
That was ages ago, but yeah,
was
that was a big
ages
thing.
ago?
It was ages ago. Yeah, I'm saying like probably like mid-lockdown.
Really?
Yeah.
Nah, that was like 4 months ago, surely. Because I got TikTok. I got the TikToks about 4 months ago. That's mad. All right, well at least I know Dreams, but that was like. It feels like Fleetwood Mac are always going to make a pop culture resurgence in the same way Queen does, but not at that same image, because Queen's somehow like this huge household name in the UK, and I guess it's a UK thing. Fleetwood Mac doesn't exactly feel like a household name, but they are obviously up there with like dad rock classics.
Yeah,
because it's
absolutely.
a really good like spread of albums, but never feels like they're at the top of the food chain, because Queen's going to be there for a while, unfortunately. But to go out and 11 tracks on Rumours, which is just impressive. And I suppose if you start with Secondhand News, you get the tone set right. You get like this light pop orientation. You get a cementing of what Rumours is going to be, essentially. It's not going to drift too far from what Secondhand News does. It's not going to like explode into something like melancholic or really slow. You kind of know where you're at with it. And I think that is why it does feel a bit comfortable. It's light, it's jolly, but it's it's the underneath bit. It's the lyrics and the meaning of it that's really just quite impressive more than anything. But yeah, I always save this question for the end, but it just makes sense to talk about it now. What's the best track on Rumours? I think we should just dive into that.
Just get it. I mean, we've mentioned it a few times. I do like You Make Loving Fun, but it's just Dreams is just one of the best tunes of all time. It just is.
Of all time?
Yeah. It's one of my favourite tunes of all time. I can put it on whenever. It goes with any mood. And it's just...
It does.
You can listen to it whatever you're doing. You can belt it out in the car. You can sing it in the shower. Or you could just listen to it in the headphones walking down the street. No matter what mood you're in. It's just one of them tracks that you can just listen to. But I would say Make Loving Fun is my second favourite.
Okay, Dreams and Make Living Fun. Okay, because I'm trying to like, I agree. Dreams is a fantastic track. I don't know if it's the best on this. I think that's probably like because I'm really basic. It'd probably be The Chain.
Nice.
But something like Dreams, like I would know it if I heard it. But I've got Secondhand News stuck in my head, and that's the only Fleetwood Mac song I can think of currently.
It's a proper earworm.
It is. It reminds us of Squeeze when they did Cool for Cats, and that's just. Still, after 4 years on from like first hearing it, it's still stuck in the back of my head, which is just a nightmare. Obviously, another massive track for Rumours was Go Your Own Way, which I think is kind of, if you ask someone to name a Fleetwood Mac track, if it wasn't Dreams, it's going to be Go Your Own Way. I feel like that's the sort of standard. I feel like that was my first favourite Fleetwood Mac song.
It's one of the ones where you know all the words to it, but you're like, I've never purposefully listened to this song. It's just you just grow up with it. It's just there in the background.
It's it's kind of like Come On Eileen or Killer Queen. It's just one of those things that is going to cement itself in your brain because you might need it at a social occasion. It's like Sweet Caroline. You're never going to listen to that on your own. You're never going to like actively, consciously put that in a playlist of favourites. But I suppose it's good to have on hand.
Yeah.
It's weird how much of Fleetwood Mac's music, especially Rumours, has sort of... It feels like it's pushed through a bit more with our generation, where it's like... I don't know, ever since this resurgence of vinyl and it being pioneered as a Tesco classic alongside Abbey Road and Life on Mars, it just feels like it's got a bit more presence. It feels more entrenched in modern culture. and it feels like it's going that direction ever since, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy put the chain on, or, you know, all sorts of films have used their main songs from Rumours on a level that Electric Light Orchestra enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. I think the cover as well is something that I sort of recognised it before I'd listened to it. Like you say, it's sort of interjected into sort of pop culture, but you don't know where you know it from, but you know it, and it's just an awesome front cover. I think it's one of my favourite album covers of all time. Stevie Nicks just looks awesome in it.
Yeah.
She's just a legend.
She is fantastic. And to be fair, I'm glad you mentioned Stevie Nicks, because she arguably does, I mean, as far as you're aware, Dreams is the best track on the album, so she's got the best track nailed down.
She's got my favourite.
But as well as that, she's got the B-side, I Don't Want to Know, and then she's got Goldust Woman as well, which is quite the mix of tracks to have. That is just impressive, if anything. Obviously, it's impressive.
It's a big welcome to Stevie Nicks joining Fleetwood Mac as well. I mean, what an entrance. Yeah.
It's fantastic. And to be fair, it's hard to talk about Fleetwood Mac and Rumours and the legacy of it without talking about what they did sort of before and after. You know, they did the self-titled album, which was kind of, it put them on the map. That was very much Fleetwood Mac are back. They're not doing, you know, Bare Trees or Penguin anymore. And then after Rumours was Tusk, and I don't know what you think of Tusk. I don't know if you listened to it or not, but I don't care for it.
No, I'm not. I think to be fair, it's almost like, even though it's their fifth album, it's almost like a second album syndrome after the success and a Grammy and everything like that. It's trying to go back and sort of recreate that magic. And it sounds like there was such a strange space when they were making it. It took like nearly a year to make the whole album. And I think trying to sort of not recreate that, but just trying to get back into that kind of headspace is going to be impossible. And the pressure to be able to sort of get to that level again is really tough. And I'm not that big of a fan.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's Stevie Nicks that said it was Fleetwood Mac made their best music in the worst places. And it does seem like that on Rumours. I mean, we've sort of danced around that subject of what the tracks actually mean, and considering how light and jolly they are. I mean, the obvious one is probably Go Your Own Way, just from the title connotation alone, but stuff like Dreams, stuff like Goldust Woman, again, a Nick's double bill there, really quite deep and sort of angry lyrics. They're very, you know, it's anthemic, it's uplifting, but at the same time it is pretty brutal, and it's something that Fleetwood Mac kind of hone in on, which is just intense. There's a real intensity to the album that's just very much always present.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact that the songs are sort of about the other band members. And being in that kind of environment, singing songs about each other and writing, having, I don't want to use like a cringy word like a muse, but that's kind of what it is. The songs are about the people that are singing them and the people that are performing them. And I guess that kind of would create an intense atmosphere which carries through onto the recording. Yeah,
definitely. It's kind of like they all sat down, wrote some songs by themselves, and it turned out they all wanted to slag each other off, and then they got a 20 times platinum album out of it. More bands should take note, if anything.
Yes, give it a try.
If One Direction want to do a reunion, they know exactly what they need to do. It's not a problem. And it kind of leans into the legacy of it, and it makes it difficult for sort of. I'm sure one of the members of Fleetwood Mac died, and I don't think they'll tour anymore. But it seems like it's a very difficult set list to recall. Because obviously these are like anthems. These are massive songs for... I mean, we're recording this in England's just won their first World Cup game. So that's fantastic. But it's, you know, you hear Sweet Caroline, you hear Come On Eileen, all those classics that kind of lose their meaning the more they're sort of put into a larger remit of culture and their meaning is changed. Not by the writing itself, but by the assimilation into what is a big event. You know, I don't think Neil Diamond ever wrote Sweet Caroline thinking, you know what, one day there's going to be Gaza down the pub with his shirt off, twirling it above his head, screaming that Kieran Trippier's goal's just gone in. But
I feel that is why I wrote this song. That is what music is for.
That, to be fair, all roads lead to World Cup cover songs. It's, you know, eventually you're going to have one, and it does feel like. I mean, if I walked into the pub down Bishop now, where it's like the local. I mean, I dare to think I don't want to ever step foot in there again. You know, the further away I get from my hometown, the better. But I know for a fact if I walked in there, it's either going to be Fleetwood Mac or Stevie Nicks' solo stuff, because the jukebox that goes on is like £1 for 6 songs, and you get just an array of Fleetwood Mac tunes. And it does feel like pub culture in a track. It does feel like a very pub culture album, and I don't get the feeling that they ever set out to do. Like, this is a very personal album. This is like airing dirty laundry over 11 songs, and it's brilliant. To have that sort of fall by the wayside, and a lot of people just think, "Oh, isn't Dreams a lovely song?" It's like, "Oh, yeah, it is, yeah," but I don't think Stevie Nicks thought that. I think that's quite good, though. I think there's a nice enjoyment to it. Without, I didn't know much about Fleetwood Mac beyond, they did Dreams and Go Your Own Way, but to actually learn about, essentially the very, very tense behind the scenes stuff. It's like that's what happens when you're touring for almost a year and are falling out with people.
Yeah. I guess as well, like saying about it, it's like pop culture music and stuff. I think it's music that anybody can listen to. It's listenable. It's easy to get into without thinking too much about what the songs are about.
Yeah.
And I even think some of the tracks sound a little bit country. Like, I know it's like a rock and roll album and like a pop album, but I sometimes get the country vibes throughout it. But yeah, I mean, people maybe not listening to the lyrics and just enjoying the tunes, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Nah, not at all. No, it's I mean, some of the best tracks lyrically, depth wise, are best for just idle listening. It feels like Fleetwood Mac have nailed that, and I think it's why I'm quite happy for them to be like the big flag bearer for pop rock. It's a very broad genre, but it feels like Rumours has its place in that. It's kind of just a real easy listen for people that need it, and I think it's more of a credit to them that they were able to balance that between an easy listening album and something that's really tense and just fueled by cocaine.
Yeah.
That you can get something that's like, oh yeah, pop that on while I walk to the pub, lovely.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. And it's such a fine line as well. And it's like you said, those country riffs that the opener Secondhand News, that to me is like, yeah, that's more like the Byrds and stuff like that. It's not exactly like Johnny Cash, but it's like it's light, it's fun, just really enjoyable. Where it's like, if you look behind that and look how they were recording it, it's like they wouldn't speak to each other unless they were working. And it's like, yeah, fair enough, lads, but yeah.
Maybe more bands. Maybe you're right. Maybe more bands do need this kind of tense atmosphere.
They do, without a doubt. I think, if anything, there are bands that would still be together. If, like, the Hoosiers would have belted out another #1 hit if they had some sort of anger towards each other. But they were just too friendly.
It's all peace and love.
Oh, don't get us started on bloody Ringo Starr. You know what? Have you ever listened to Ringo Starr's newest solo work? I love this tangent because it gives me a chance to bash Ringo Starr.
I can't. I say I have, but go ahead.
It's awful. His newest album was called What's My Name, and I just thought it was old age setting in. But no, he was really curious as to what his name was, and he's got a title track, and it's a country western song. And it's awful because he's auto-tuned his voice into oblivion.
Oh no!
I've no respect for him, but I don't like Ringo. But
He's got beef with Ringo.
I don't.
I'm gonna go listen to it as soon as we're done. I'm gonna go listen to it.
Honestly, it's like out of every album I've ever listened to, it is the worst album I've ever listened to. And I've listened to the Crazy Hog Crazy Hits album. Like, that is better than this Ringo Starr thing.
But a glowing review.
It's so, like, I don't mean to go off tangent on Fleetwood whatever, but like for the past 8 years, consistently Ringo Starr has made awful music, and it's just know when to stop. If you look at Paul McCartney, it's like, oh, McCartney 3, yeah, pretty good. Egypt Station, very good, nice one, Paul. And Ringo's like, oh, do you mind if I ask people what my name is for 4 minutes on a track and then release a little EP? It's like, oh yeah, peace and love. It's like, nah, not for you. But
not having it.
I'm not having it. But what I will have is a bit of Rumours, because it's like, I feel like now that I've got it on record. I don't know what the right term is for that. I don't know. People get annoyed either way, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, my mum was always like, I'd just call it a record. I don't know. I'm easy either way. I have no preference.
My brother keeps calling them big CDs, so
that is what I'm going to use from future.
Big CDs.
Big CDs.
Got me big CDs. I've managed to. So every time I crop this for videos, it never shows what I'm actually trying to put in the background. I just gave up. So I've got Yard Act next to me rather than Fleetwood Mac. But that's a big CD. As far the beautiful thing about big CDs is that you got to flip them, and it gives us the chance to sort of decide which is the better of the two sides, the A side or the B side. And it's difficult with Fleetwood Mac and Rumours, and I was wondering what you thought. Which side is better? So you've got Secondhand News all the way to Songbird, but then you've got the Chain to Gold Dust Woman, and it's
I do like Gold Dust Woman. I'm not a fan of Oh Daddy though.
No, it's definitely if we can't agree on the strongest track, we're going to agree that is the weakest
That
track.
is
On
do you
Rumours.
agree? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not good.
No, it's just not. Maybe it would be good if it was on a different album, but I don't know. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think side one, I would say, is
Yeah.
probably
I feel
my
like
favorite.
Oh Daddy gets a free pass because of where it is on the album. It's right towards the end. It's the little cool off period after I Don't Want to Know, and then after Oh Daddy's disappointment, where you're just thinking, "Well, what was that?" Gold is for a Woman's already starts like, "Oh, brilliant, Steve Nicks is back."
Yeah, we're back in.
You don't get time to process how actually it was quite bad.
You do when you get it. So going away from vinyls, if you listen to the album on shuffle, it's it definitely worked much better in the order that it's in than it does on shuffle. 100%.
I feel like
I don't get that with most albums. I'm like, I can listen to it in any order, but this one, it's in a specific order for a specific reason. It's probably because the tracks are so different that they need to go in this order. But don't put it on shuffle. Listen to it as it's supposed to be.
It's one of those big things that music purists are like, oh, you should never shuffle an album. You've got to listen to it start to finish. Like, I've not got the time to sit through 5 Nick Cave tracks to get to the one that I want to. I have not the patience anymore. I just want what I want. It's very immediate, especially with Apple Music and stuff where it's like you can just click it and away we go. Very few albums are kind of, especially now, made fully sort of sit down and listen the whole way through. I mean, I mentioned Yarak earlier where it's like their album you can just chop and change. There's no real amazing pace to it. And of all people, I listened to Louis Tomlinson's new album today, and that is just a collection of singles with album bits strapped to it. But the kind of what Fleetwood Mac did with Rumours, where you need to listen to that in the right order for not just every song to be palatable, but also interesting, is kind of like it's not as frequently relied on. And I suppose that's because it's the shift away from physical to digital media. But something like Fleetwood Mac and Rumours, I keep going to call it Fleetwood Mac because I know that's the last album they did before Rumours. Just like, oh yeah, Fleetwood Mac and their Rumours. It is one of those albums. I feel like it's one of the best examples of an album that can be listened to in that order, and it unfortunately justifies the absolute music snobs that go, you can't skip to the third track on a vinyl. You've got to wait, and it's like, I really don't have time, lads. The only other album I can think of that does that like immediately off the top of my head that I've covered is Abbey Road, because obviously the B side is just like that one long song that just mixes really nicely.
I guess I kind of think 17 Going Under is a bit like that. Hypersonic Missiles isn't. I feel like you can listen to that in any order, but I do feel like 17 Going Under it's much better. I've got it as the only CD in my car because who has CDs anymore?
I have like 6 or 7 CDs because I can't get rid of them. Charity shops don't want them either. But I remember for about 3 years I'd lost my Mamma Mia original soundtrack CD. Couldn't find it, and I found it recently. It was in my mate's CD tray in his car. So I don't know when he got it, but I don't know how he got it, to be honest. I remember putting it in because we'd just gotten back from a night out. I was like, I'll pop it in the car, I'll pop it in the front. And I know I took it back. Like, I put it in the CD tray because I was very careful with the one CD I owned at the time. But somewhere along the way, he got it back. But I've got it back now, but I kind of want to get rid of it because I'm obviously going to get the Mamma Mia soundtrack on vinyl.
What would you give out of 10, the Mamma Mia soundtrack?
Honestly, like, genuinely, all jokes aside, probably like a real solid 7, because that Colin Firth cover of Our Last Summer is like so good. Incredible. Obviously, it takes a bit of a beating when Pierce Brosnan starts singing, which is the classic jokes like, oh, Pierce Brosnan can't sing. It's like, well, yeah, but he really can't sing. It's difficult for him, you know. I want Pierce Brosnan and the Mamma Mia cast to actually cover Rumours. That'd be fantastic.
Yes, we could mix the two.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. I think if they cut out Oh Daddy and just put, like, I don't know, Super Trooper, that'd do.
It would be a very different vibe to the films, though. Like, I imagine a film about Rumours would be incredibly dark compared to Mamma Mia.
Oh, without a doubt. And it's, I suppose, I mean, like, just to go back to the insert, which is just someone has Googled Fleetwood Mac Rumours facts and gone to, like, the top 10 kids section. It's gone, oh, it included 3 US top 10 singles. And it's, you know, I don't know what information we can really gather from an insert that says, oh, the chain used to introduce BBC's Grand Prix coverage. Presumably there's more information on the band, and I know we rescheduled this podcast, but in the time I made my notes and the time now, I have not done a single bit of work. So I'm going to quickly have a look, because It did mention something about cocaine, which is a huge allegation to make, just saying, oh, the band were on cocaine, were very unhappy with each other. To not expand on that in the insert seems just a bit silly. But from what I can see, most of the band just didn't really like each other, which is understandable, really, when you make an album called Rumours. But Chris Stone, one of Record Plant's owners, said that Fleetwood Mac brought excess at its most excessive, which I do get the feeling of, and I'm glad I picked out that quote in my notes rather than just from the Wikipedia page just now, because there is a real depth to Fleetwood Mac's Rumours. I've done it again, Rumours. The just sheer amount of instrumentals and the actual range of instruments used. If you go down to the track listings and the personnel, you've got a vibraphone, a Fender Rhodes, tack piano, Hammond organ, harmonium, clavinet, a Wurlitzer, a Moog, a bass guitar, a fretless bass guitar. There's all sorts on it. There's acoustics, there's string sections. There's a real gluttony that gives us an amazing sense of presence. And it is just fascinating how so much can work together. And I do think it kind of relies on something that shouldn't work, which is just a lot of vaguely similar tracks coming together to make this massive soundscape. Because, again, we spoke about it where Goldust Woman goes into Goldust Woman's the end, where Secondhand News goes into dreams and stuff. It shouldn't work, but it does. And I think it's just the gluttony of it, the amount on Fleetwood Mac's Rumours that just sort of explodes, really. There's too much of it.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you've listed all those instruments there, and like you said at the beginning, trying to pick out the different instruments. I was like, I can't play any instruments, sadly, and I'm not like a music, like, technical music nerd or anything like that. So knowing the amount of different kinds of instruments and the artistry, I suppose, that's gone into it is impressive. I mean, to be fair, for years before I knew about the sort of relationships while they were making the albums, I just listened to it as what it was and the face of it. I think when you learn a little bit more about what was actually going on during the process of making it, it kind of does add another level to it. It's just cool.
Yeah,
I love it.
It is. It's very cool, and it's like you said there. It's like there are very few albums that you can just kind of stick on and just go, oh yeah, this is great, fun listen, and then at the exact same time think, what a genuine layering masterclass this is as a song. It's again, like, the same here. I can't play any instruments. I made it. I've got a guitar in the corner, and last episode,
don't we all?
We all do. My cousin used to be a guitar teacher. He gave it to me. I've had it 4 years. I can play G, D, and E, and that'll do me. That's it. That's one more than the Stone Roses ever managed, so that's fine.
Burn.
But the last episode I did was Wings, Band on the Run, and I don't remember. I don't recall the series of events that got me to pick up the guitar in the corner, but I made it very, very clear to myself, and I made sure not to not try and form any of the notes, and I didn't strum the guitar because that gives the impression that I can actually play it, and I can't play guitar. But it's like a cool little prop to just pretend.
Yeah. Is it Danny, my boyfriend, last year during the Euros, and I'm sure it'll come back out in the next few weeks, learn It's Coming Home. Because you can do it on one string and you just move your finger and it's like ding 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 ding, and that's all you can do. It's a little party trick. So that if you go on and learn a track, learn that one.
You know what, that's actually not a bad shout. I think if you're going to learn any track, it's either that or I feel like the other big one, I remember when I used to, God, this is going like, I say ages ago, but it is ages ago. It's like 6 years now when I used to go to house parties and stuff. Someone would like the meme of like, oh, someone's brought an acoustic guitar. Someone actually did. Like they were just not self-aware, and they actually brought an acoustic guitar. And they played, of course, Wonderwall, but then they did Space Oddity. So it feels like Wonderwall, Space Oddity, 3 lines. That's half a set list if you go to like a pub gig.
And the crowd would go wild.
Oh, of course they would, because if you play any note in relation to 3 lines, at least someone is going to start clapping. For a fact. But they did a new one. They did a Christmas version of It's Coming Home. It's actually not too bad, to be fair.
Oh, wow. Is it what? Did they do it specifically for the World Cup?
Yeah, they did it specifically for this one. Which, at the time of recording, England is still in the World Cup. By the time this episode releases, I'm sure we'll have been knocked out by Argentina in the round of 16. But I'm not really that into football. I play Football Manager. That's about as far as I can get with it these days.
Well,
But
you're doing better than me, so.
I don't get it. It's essentially, this is my Halloween. I really hate Halloween, but it's an excuse to drink. So it's kind of like, oh, the World Cup's on. Yeah, that's brilliant. 12 o'clock pints, fantastic. That'll do me. But I suppose that's how Rumours felt when they were doing all that cocaine, which is a nice little segue into getting back
well done.
to, that's, a year at Spark when you're doing pre-recorded shows playing Fleetwood Mac. I suppose the big thing we need to touch on, we've kind of touched on it with the sort of, this is a pub album and sort of the nice dissonance between it being just an easy listen and something that's very rewarding. The legacy of Rumours, which is such a daft question, what is the legacy of Fleetwood Mac's greatest album? But it kind of just, it's a strange piece, and it's I know I'm going to repeat myself here, but it's one that shouldn't work. It is an album that is just wrought with problems. Bigger bands have done worse work with less problems. You think of someone like, I don't know, Oasis, I guess, is a big example. They did two albums, which apparently, by all accounts, are very good, but I think they were just shite. And then their third album was just this car crash. Fleetwood Mac probably had just a massive array of issues and problems and technicalities. They come out with this amazing album, and it's not quite like anything that was around at the time, which is just such a cop-out of an answer of like, oh, it's just so unique for the time. But it really just, David Bowie had done Law, Marquee Moon had done Television, and then obviously Heroes as well, and Kraftwerk was sort of in the charts. It's very far removed from what was popular at the time. Pop rock really wasn't something that had exploded yet. I mean, Queen were around, but they hadn't done a Night at the Opera. They hadn't done their big actually, they might have done Night at the Opera. I might just be talking out my arse at this point. I'll double check.
Speed Google.
They had done Night at the Opera. So ignore everything I've just said. That's not an issue. My point still stands, though. Stuff like Steely Jan, Pink Flag, Wire, Brian Eno, they were popular. Phil Akuti was still knocking about doing really good albums. This doesn't feel like anything that 1977 had. A Night at the Opera came and gone. So there, I've covered my tracks there, that's fine. But it doesn't feel like that genre was really being sort of catered to. Pink Floyd had done Animals. There was a lot of creative stuff. You never had like it's not a slight. It's not me being horrible to Fleetwood Mac. Rumours is a very straightforward guitar album. It's a guitar album. But as you mentioned earlier, 17 Going Under, that's a guitar album. They're really good examples of guitar music. And I think the legacy of it, legacy-wise, is that Fleetwood Mac's got a real basis for not just for creativity, but the simplicity of it as well. I think a lot of the simplicity that people enjoy about it, especially me, something like You Can Go Your Own Way, one of the best parts of that for me is just how simple a riff it is at the end. I just like good guitar solos.
Just good. It's like a recipe, isn't it? It's like you don't need loads of fluff. You just need good ingredients, good solid ingredients, and you can make a nice dish. And that's just like an album. But I guess when you think about 1977, it's just punk rock, isn't it? At least in England, it's just massive punk, and this is just pretty far removed from the Sex Pistols. But I guess in terms of legacy, I mean, there probably isn't at least a guitar band, if not kind of outside of that genre, any kind of band or artist that can say they haven't been really influenced by Fleetwood Mac, even if it's not directly, even if it's from a 90s band, but they've been influenced by Fleetwood Mac. I think you can just hear it in lots of stuff, like even Florence and the Machine. I mean, you can just see the resemblance between Stevie Nicks and Florence Welch. Iconic.
No, I agree. It's kind of like, it's that inevitable all roads lead to the Beatles thing. It's Fleetwood Mac's influence cannot be overstated. I mean, I suppose that speaks for its commercial viability as well, where it's this huge album, still, probably is in the top 40, still like Elton John's greatest hits is always around. It's just one of those albums that people continue to listen to, and I do think that's because it's quite folky, quite country. It's quite nice, just a bit relaxing at times. But it's like you said, it's the right ingredients. You've got good guitar, you've got a range of vocalists coming together, really good writing, and a hell of a lot of cocaine, which is kind of like a nice cake mix. It's like red velvet for albums. And obviously we touched upon the best track. Fair enough. Yeah, I think the ones we've chosen are acceptable. I think
Mm.
anything that isn't "Oh Daddy" is fine. I think that's all
Yeah.
acceptable. I think, to be fair though, if you're a Fleetwood Mac fan that's listening and your favourite track is that one, please reevaluate. Please go back and listen to Rumours. Have a good solid think, and get back to sort of the proper lands of, oh, my favourite Fleetwood Mac song is "The Chain." That'll do. I can't think of anything else. I mean, we've skipped over the likes of Songbird, which is kind of, take it or leave it, but it's a very nice song. Don't Stop does my head in. I should just note that. It really, really gets on my tits. It really
Why?
just... I don't know. I just don't like how optimistic it is.
I don't like the positivity.
I'm very much a man that can barely piece together one day, let alone the day after. So Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow to me is like nightmare fuel. It's like, no, gotta take it one day at a time, in me stride, just slowly. No, I think that's all about. I think that's everything for Fleetwood Mac Rumours. It's one of those albums that's kind of like, it feels huge. It's a huge album, but when you really get down to talking about it, obviously beyond the history of it, and oh, everybody was doing cocaine, haha, they're getting divorced. It's not really something that has an infinite depth to it.
Why do you think it's still in the top 40?
Oh,
why do you think it's still popular?
I think that's because it's just like, as much as it sounds daft to say an album is easygoing, it is really just quite homely. Mm-hmm. I do think a lot of it might rely on the fact that it's a generational album, like Queen. Like, I mean, I'm just drawn on what my grandparents used to listen to, then my parents listened to it, and then I listened to it. Apart from my dad, he listens to a lot of Above and Beyond, which is just not good. Stuff like Queen, stuff like Billy Joel, Elvis Costello, and then it's passed down. Fleetwood Mac, as just a band itself, like beyond Rumours especially though, is one of those generational bands where it's like your grandparents love them, then your parents love them, and then you love them, and then it's just passed down and down and down, and that's a quality that remains. And I think it is aided a bit by kind of re-releases, anniversaries. It's rather telling that everybody talks about Rumours, and then if you say like, oh, did you like Tango in the Night, and everybody goes, what the fuck is Tango in the Night? Get Rumours back on. I feel like Rumours, just to link it back to what we said at the start, it's one of those albums that kind of pioneered that record what's the word? Don't even know the word for it. When records came back.
Resurgence.
Resurgence, that's the one, yeah. Brilliant. Journalist at large. Yeah, it's Rumours of like part of that resurgence when records started getting cool again by like 2016, I want to say. Fleetwood Mac sort of pioneered it alongside David Bowie and the Beatles. And, David Bowie, national treasure, the Beatles, 3 national treasures and 1 drummer. Fleetwood Mac, a very American band, something that isn't really a household name in England, the same as like the Sex Pistols or the Clash, but at the same generation, the same value, the same decade really for music. And I think a lot of the longevity of it, not just, I mean, I've brushed past the obvious point of they're just good songs, but I think a lot of good songs go to waste. You don't hear many people belting out The Cars or Marquee Moon anymore, and that comes from the fact that it's just not as accessible, not from a sort of intelligence, sort of, oh, isn't art high and mighty point of view, just from a general sense of this is really good music and it's really easy to get your hands on it. Like, you could walk into any record shop, you're going to see Fleetwood Mac dozens times over. If you walked into HMV, it's going to be on 2 for 40. Like, that's the sort of accessibility that people want, and it's really reassuring that there's albums like that are still around. I always think, like, at a push, Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon, I think that's more for the album cover though. What do you think? Why do you think it's kind of got this longevity? Why do you think it's still around?
I do agree about the easy listening. Like, it's not something like prog rock or something that like punk that might be a little bit more challenging to sort of get into or whatever. But it's not something that I think is a teenage album. I think it's something that you probably appreciate more once you get a little bit older and get into sort of your 20s and things. And maybe that goes hand in hand with getting into things like vinyl and finding out more about music from the 70s and the 60s and whenever. And yeah, I think just the easy listening aspect of it is probably the best. And just when you think about an album that you might buy on vinyl, and you think about a front cover, Rumours Fleetwood Mac just
Oh
comes
yeah,
up comes up. It's one of the top ones, like you're saying. It's just one of those albums that you get. You think, right, I'm going to start a vinyl collection, and what should I buy? Fleetwood Mac's Rumours. That's what I'm going to get.
it's one of those where it's like I'm always envious of my mates have got a turntable, but they've also got space to actually put the record next to it on like one of those little stand things,
Very cool.
which is incredible. I envy them. But it is one of those albums that feels like it's nice not just to listen to it, but to display it. It kind of shows that, I think the real reason a lot of people collect records, especially for me, is just to show my superior taste in music. Well, I've got 3 Richard Hawley vinyls back there, and I always just throw them out whenever relatives are always like, look at me, look at what I'm listening to.
They'll go to the front of the pile.
Oh, yes. To be fair, on the floor, I do have the best of Status Quo, but...
Hey, there's nothing wrong with Status Quo.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Status Quo. I'm just saying that's one of the records I'm trying to get rid of alongside a Wham single.
Oh, yes.
I can't even... It's I'm Your Man, the Wham single.
What a tune.
Because I'm just getting rid of it because the B-side is just the instrumentals and it's shit.
Oh dear.
Which is, to be fair, that, yeah.
I guess going back to the sort of the vinyl thing as well and thinking about like generations of music, if you were going to buy a record player and you were like, right, mum, dad, what have you got in the loft? Rumours is probably going to be there alongside Bowie and the Beatles. It's just the things that are there and the things that you can just access.
It's my grandparents were like, oh, you're collecting vinyls, here's ours. And I shit you not, I opened a suitcase and there was 50 Cliff Richard singles.
Literally every charity shop you go in is just full of Cliff Richard vinyls. That's
the thing. They used to, so when I was at Sunderland Uni, they used to do the British Art Foundation. Whenever you went in there, they would literally always have Super Trooper, like the single, the 12-inch single. And it just never sold because it was like 25 quid. It's like, that's a lot of money to pay for a shit band. But it was always there. And it's just certain records that sort of come up in the memory every now and then where it's like, oh, I remember that. I've got it's secondhand nostalgia for an album that, released about 20, 30 years before we were born, but now has a resurgence because new people are listening to it. New people are starting to collect a very old form of listening to music, and it's great.
It is. It's awesome.
I feel like the one for me that I always get it with is Michael Jackson's Thriller. That was like the first, that and It's a Kind of Magic by Queen, because in the dying days when vinyl was kind of like not cool anymore, my grandparents would still have those on, and then now I've got them and it's like, oh yeah, I remember these. And it's just that association you have with it. I think that's part of the reason people like physical media still, is that, it's nice to have the display of it as well. It feels more personal, it feels more, identifiable to actually own Rumours than to just stream it, which is not me getting on my high horse saying go out and buy a vinyl player. I'm just saying it's like nice to feel the heft of a record before you slap it on the turntable and accidentally scratch it.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely is.
Perfect. But the last question, which is always the most important one, but I feel like the it's a foregone conclusion. Is there an album that should replace Fleetwood Mac's Rumours on the 1001 albums list?
Maybe Britney?
Maybe Britney. I mean, to be fair, there are... I mean, to be fair, I was shocked to know that Sophie Ellis-Bextor has no albums on this list when she should have about 7. Yeah, I think Britney. Which one are you thinking though? For Britney?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember any of
any of the greatest hits.
Britney's greatest hits. No, I think we'll keep Fleetwood Mac's Rumours on the 1001 albums you should listen to before you die list.
I think it's certainly earned its place, not just by us agreeing on it, but by the fact that it is a very good album. It's no Read My Lips, but it certainly is, a good album. It's no Hit Me Baby One More Time, but it certainly has its flourishes.
It tries.
It does its best, and that's all we can ask for. It's near perfect in the sense of if it had better songs, it would be perfect, but it doesn't, so it isn't. Mainly, I don't know. My hatred for Don't Stop and Oh Daddy, I can't get over it. It's album songs that are kind of like, I'm glad these are not the ones that are best remembered. But no, I think that's everything we can talk about for war rumors. Have you got any like socials you want to plug? I always do that where it's just kind of like, if anything, the whole point of podcasting is to make sure more people follow you on social media. But kind of by the time this episode releases, I don't know if Twitter is going to be a thing anymore.
Oh my god, I've just stayed so far away from Twitter.
Oh, honestly, it's grim.
It's awful. I don't know what is going on with it, and I dread to think where it's going to go.
I'm one step away. Like, if I didn't have to use like social media for work, I would straight up just not have any presence online. I wouldn't podcast. I wouldn't write. I would just be like a little hermit, and I would do nothing.
I wish I could. I wish I could just sometimes. I mean, I feel like I probably could delete Twitter and not be that arsed, but like Instagram, I'm just hooked.
That's the thing. It's like I delete Twitter, but one, I've got to use it for work, but two, it's like I got the verified badge before it was cool.
I know. I was going to say, I bet you are so annoyed that people can just buy them now.
To be honest, right? Everybody that's asked me like when my mates said, "Oh, I bet you're upset about people paying $8 for it," it's like, no, it's just funny. I'll admit now, I'm fucking raging because I worked really hard to get that. It's not. So everybody kept criticizing the Twitter Blue. It's like, oh, you just want this because it separates you. It's like, no. Yeah, no, that's why I like it.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
You shouldn't be able to buy your way into this club.
Oh, God, no. This is like... So mine already says, this account is verified because it's notable in government, news, entertainment, or another designated category. Now, to be fair, I'm not notable in any of those categories, but Twitter thought I was because I'd written about Queen Victoria's underwear for Daily Star. So I don't see how they've got the right to remove that from me because I'm relevant.
Yeah, you've got it. Yeah. It's in writing.
To be honest, the ego power boost that gave me when I first got it has not quite disintegrated yet, which is like kind of worried what will happen when I lose it because I'll just feel very humble.
Yeah,
and I don't like that.
A little self-esteem.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like just knowing that if anybody doubts my opinion, because I did when I was reviewing the Arctic Monkeys songs, the new ones, people were like, "Oh, you don't know what you're on about." It's like, don't make me tap the badge, lads. It's like, come on. But no, if people are still using Twitter, my Twitter's at Ewan Gleadow. It'll be on the bottom, and then you can get my work at stuff like Daily Star, Cult Following, Clapper. I don't really know where else. I write for that many places. I just don't have the brain capacity to remember them. I've got too many recipes and albums in my brain to actually remember what I do anymore. But no, if you've got any sources you want to plug or whatever, what are you up to at BBC?
I work in the drama unit, which is completely different to anything I've done before. So yeah, we make dramas for like Radio 4 and BBC Sounds and stuff. I'm probably not even going to plug my socials, to be honest. I hardly ever use them, and it's not like I'm like the work that I do isn't even my work yet. It's just like other people's work. So yeah, I'm not that bothered.
No, that's fair play. It's that. If I could go with like my timeline on Twitter, it's just me retweeting my own work, and if I can keep it like that, then that's fine. But occasionally I'll get album like pre-album codes and stuff, and I'll be like, look what I'm listening to that you can't yet.
Yeah, it sucks to be you.
It was when everyone was raging about not getting pulled because it was like, I got Bridlington and Sheffield, lads. I don't know how to break the news to you. But yeah, what a lovely podcast. What a lovely time. Thank you very much for coming on to talk about Rumours, because it is it's one of them albums, isn't it, that people like.
It's just a classic. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for letting me talk about this one as well.
Not a bother. I now need to think of an appropriate outro, because usually I click stop. Now, I'm not going to do that this time, because last time I did that and I just clicked stop the recording, I'm, as of today, still editing that episode because it managed to warp the audio out of place. So if maybe we should take a moment, silence for Stevie Nicks,